In this video, we're going to set up our SSH key so that we can use SSH authentication with GitHub once we set up our account. So if you're still in the Git demo repository, we're going to go back to our main user directory. So I'm going to type cd tilde, and that will take us back to our home directory. If I type pwd, you can see that I'm back in my root of my home directory. Now I'm going to see if I have an .ssh folder, which I don't. So I need to create the .ssh folder, which will house our SSH keys. So I'm going to type mkdir for making the .ssh directory, so .ssh, and now I'm going to change directory into that. So now I'm in my .ssh folder underneath my home directory. Now I'm going to issue a command to generate my SSH key. So SSH dash keygen, you pass the dash lowercase t space RSA, because we want to use the RSA type of key, dash capital C, and then space, and then in quotes, your email address. So I'm going to put my email address here. And now press enter. It's going to ask you where you want to save this key. The default will be fine, which will create a ID_RSA file. Then enter a passphrase. I'm going to use a passphrase. I highly recommend it. Once that's been saved, your SSH key has been created. If you do an ls-al, that will show you all your files that you have, even your hidden files in the current folder. And we can see we have two files here. We have an ID_RSA and an ID_RSA.pub. The .pub file is the public side of the key, and that is the contents that we will be pasting into GitHub once we make it over there. So what I need to do now is copy the contents of the ID_RSA.pub file. So I'm simply going to open it with a text editor. So I'm going to use mate in this case. And I'm just going to copy everything. So I can do a Command A and then Command C. Now I can close that file. Now we can go to GitHub. So go to github.com, and once the GitHub site loads, if you haven't signed up for GitHub yet, just go ahead and pick a username, fill in your email address, and create a password, and sign up for a GitHub account. It's free. They allow you to have unlimited public repositories. I already have an account, so I'm just going to go over here to sign in, and I'm going to use my username and password and sign in. Once you've signed in, you need to go to the account settings. Once you're at account settings, you need to go to SSH keys. Once you've done that, go over here and click on Add SSH Key. Give it a title. At this point, it doesn't matter what title you give it as long as you can remember it. And remember that SSH keys are tied to your computer. And now, let's paste in that key. Now, if the key was not in your clipboard, just use those steps we just went through to open it up in a text editor, select all, and copy it to your clipboard. And then come back to this web page and paste it in. Once it's been pasted in, hit Add Key. When this returns, you know that you've added your SSH key to GitHub. So now we're going to go back to our terminal, and we're going to use the SSH command to try to access GitHub. So I'm going to type SSH dash capital T, and now we're going to say git at github.com. And the first time you do this, your system is going to ask you if you're sure you want to establish a connection, because you haven't done this before. I'm going to say yes. What it did is it permanently added GitHub to my known host file, so I won't get that prompt again next time. And then it tried to connect to GitHub, and GitHub said, welcome, my user ID, and that I successfully authenticated. Then, of course, it pointed out the obvious to me, which is that GitHub does not provide shell access. You really don't have to worry about this. All we wanted is that you successfully authenticated. This is the piece that we're looking for. At this point, I'm just going to return back to my home directory.